This conference will now be recorded.
It is 5:36 p.m. on Tuesday, February 16th, 2021. What we have is a special meeting here tonight is being held both in person and electronically. We are in the governor's room at the community center. We have an agenda, should be on the yellow if everybody's got their packets on this one. Is there a motion to approve the agenda?
Ed will make a motion to approve the agenda.
Noel will second.
Ed 1, Shannon 2. Any changes, corrections to the agenda? All in favor of the agenda as written, please signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed? Agenda is approved. Next, we have a public hearing. This public hearing is a continuation from our February 8th, 2021 meeting. And this is pertaining to the annexation by ordinance and for also the property tax sharing agreement, but basically the annexation by ordinance. So we will continue and reopen the public hearing for this reason on Tuesday, February 16th, 2021 at 5:37 p.m. Basic rules, guidelines for the public hearing is the staff will make a presentation or continue their presentation. And then if there are any applicants, they will address the council. And after that, there's a time for public comment, if any. So with that, we will call the special meeting to order, the public hearing.
So, Mr. Mayor, if you don't mind, we'll have Russ give a brief recollection of what we talked about at your last meeting for the continuance of this public hearing. And then after that, Mr. Mayor, we'll follow the rules that you outlined and we'll see where it takes us. So Russ, if you wouldn't mind starting out.
Certainly. Mayor Zeman, members of the council, you're here to have a public hearing regarding annexation by ordinance of certain lands in Traverse Township. On November 9th, you entered into a development agreement with St. Peter Investors LLC. They are constructing the 66-unit multifamily development in North Traverse Green. In that agreement, you made an obligation on behalf of the city to extend the sanitary sewer main from where it ends right now in Standard Lumber Subdivision, Clark Street at Warren Park, and it needs to go due west across certain lands where it will go underneath County 20 to provide service to the new 66-unit apartment. Bolton and Bank have done the engineering, the design of the sanitary sewer. It necessitates the acquisition of easements from both the Bonnie Ends interests as well as the Ben and Joanna Pell interests. A 40-foot easement is required on the Ends property, 30-foot on the Pell property. For construction purposes, we need a 25-foot easement on each side of the permanent easement. Following installation, the pipe will be completely underground and won't daylight on either of the two properties. The site will be restored and the lands can be farmed as in years past. We had the properties appraised. We engaged a third party to negotiate the acquisition of the easements. And at this time, we have been able to successfully negotiate the access of the easements from the Ben and Joanna Pell interests. We'd made an offer and we settled at 140% of the appraised value. It is our understanding that the Ends family is having an appraisal done on their own. We are awaiting, or they are awaiting, as we understand, receipt of that appraisal. But in light of the October 2021 obligation to have the sewer line installed, it's recommended that you provide for the annexation of the properties and then to consider the future condemnation of an easement for the sewer lines. You are given the opportunity to annex the lands by ordinance by Minnesota Statute 414.033, and it reads: a municipality may by ordinance declare lands annexed to the municipality, and any such land is deemed to be urban or suburban in character or about to become so if. And then the second subclause is the land is completely surrounded by lands within the municipal limits. The annexation action tonight includes 7 individual properties. There is a map that is provided on page 6 that gives you a depiction of how those are assembled. It includes the Pell property, the Enns property, 2 properties owned by Nicollet County, 2 properties owned by James Wilson, and then a property which is in effect the Wilson farmland, which is owned at this time by Pell Inc. That's the Pell Insurance and Real Estate interests. We had sent the matter to Minnesota Boundary Adjustments so they could pre-map the annexation to make sure that we are including all of the lands necessary to provide for, which would constitute all of the lands completely surrounded by the city limits. And Minnesota Boundaries through MnDOT has confirmed that these are the appropriate properties. There's an ordinance that you'll be asked to adopt later this evening. The ordinance has been recommended to you by the Planning Commission. If you were to approve the ordinance tonight, we would need to file a copy with Minnesota Boundary Adjustments and pay the $400 fee. A notice of the ordinance would need to be published in the St. Peter Herald, of which later this evening you'll be asked to consider a summary of the publication. And then that would give you standing to undertake condemnation proceedings to compel the provision of the easements. You're also asked to consider a shared taxation agreement with Traverse Township. All 7 of the properties are located within Traverse Township, and as these properties will in the future be paying taxes to the city of St. Peter in lieu of Traverse Township, it does leave somewhat of a hole in the township budget. As such, a shared taxation agreement has been negotiated, and it would contemplate paying Traverse Township $800 in 2021, 2022, and 2023 for a total of $2,400. The agreement was drafted by your city attorney. The township board considered the agreement at their meeting last Monday, and I do have a executed signed copy that the township has provided to my office through the U.S. mail today. Mayor, that concludes my report. And I guess it concludes my report.
Okay. Next up, we would have, if there's anyone with the applicant that would like to speak on this matter. Not seeing anyone, we will therefore go to the public input part of the public hearing. So is there anyone that would like to speak on this matter also from the public? Seeing no one, we will close the public hearing for the annexation by ordinance, which was a continuation from our February 8th, 2021 meeting. We'll close the public hearing at 5:44 p.m. on Tuesday, February 16th, 2021. Next up, we have some new business, and the first thing, we're going right back to Russ for the resolutions, excuse me, for the ordinance and then for a resolution on this matter. Russ?
Mayor, the ordinance that's been prepared for your consideration that would provide for the annexation, as we've discussed at the hearing, begins on page 7 and concludes on page 12. Mr. Mayor, I'd answer any questions that you or members of the council might have at this time.
All right, questions for Russ? Seeing none, the ordinance of the city of St. Peter annexing land located within the town of Traverse Township, Nicollet County, appears on pages 7 through 12. Is there a motion for approval?
Noel will move.
Carrie Johnson will second.
Shannon 1, Carrie 2. Any questions now? Call the roll, please, Barb.
Mayor Zeman,
Aye.
Councilmember DeVos,
Aye.
Councilmember Bruflat,
Aye.
Councilmember Grams,
Aye.
Councilmember Carrie Johnson,
Aye.
Councilmember Noel,
Aye.
Councilmember Ed Johnson.
Aye.
Ordinance is approved. Next up, we have on page 13 is a resolution authorizing for the execution of shared taxation agreement by and between the city of St. Peter and Traverse Township. Russ covered this and how it is handled. Are there any questions? If not, is there a motion to approve?
Ed will make a motion to approve.
Noel will second.
Ed one, Shannon two. Any questions now? Call the roll, please, Barb.
Councilmember DeVos,
Aye.
Councilmember Ruflat,
Aye.
Councilmember Grams,
Aye.
Councilmember Carrie Johnson,
Aye.
Councilmember Noel,
Aye.
Councilmember Ed Johnson,
Aye.
Mayor Zeman.
Aye. That resolution is approved. Thank you, Russ. Next up, we have a North 3rd Street and McLeod Street project costing and call for public hearing. And Mr.
Mr. Mayor.
Moulton, and I see Mr. Jeff Domras is here tonight. So if you want to come on up, Jeff, in case we need you.
Mr. Mayor, before you get to that, will you also consider the summary publication resolution for the previous action?
Oh, I'm sorry. Yep, I ran a copy of it. So we'll back up a little bit. Hopefully everybody got email and whatever. So what it is for the publication, and it's a synopsis of it, I guess, compared to the all out pages, but it's a resolution authorizing publication of the title and summary of the ordinance, the 3rd series on the 7 properties, is it, Russ, that we talked about? So does anybody have any questions on the resolution? If not, is there a motion to approve?
Ed will make a motion to approve.
Carrie Johnson will second.
Okay, Ed 1, Carrie 2. Any questions now? Call the roll, please, Barb.
Councilmember Ruflat,
Aye.
Councilmember Grams,
Aye.
Councilmember Carrie Johnson,
Aye.
Councilmember Noel,
Aye.
Councilmember Ed Johnson,
Aye.
Mayor Zeman,
Aye.
Councilmember DeVos.
Aye.
That resolution is also approved. Now we will go back to the North 3rd Street, Center Street, and McLeod Street improvement project. And Pete and Jeff.
Thank you, Mayor Zeman. Before you tonight on pages 14, 15, and 16, you have a summary of the action that we're looking for tonight related to 3rd Street project. The resolution on page 17 is asking that, declaring that the cost be assessed and ordering preparation of proposed assessments for the project. And on 18, you will see a resolution calling for a hearing of proposed assessments for the project. At this time, I'm going to turn it over to Jeff Domras, who's going to do a small recap of what we've gone through this past week and break that down for you. Jeffrey?
Can everybody hear Jeffrey okay? Try again, Jeff.
How about now? Can you hear me? Okay, great. Thank you. Okay, thank you, Mayor. You're not going to be able to talk tonight, I guess. So. This is the mayor's mic. So this is the next step in the process for assessing the North 3rd Street, north of St. Julian improvements, the improvement cost of benefiting property owners. Previously, the city council had held an improvement hearing and then determined to continue with the project by ordering preparation of the plans and specifications. After that, the plans and specs were prepared and brought before the council, and the council again ordered approved the plans and then ordered the advertisement for bids. So bids were received. We're now on the next step of the process. We received bids last week, received 8 bids, very good. A couple of them were very good. So that helps out on both the accessible cost for everybody and on the city's part too. So as Pete noted, there's 2 resolutions to consider tonight. The first is on page 17 of the packet. That's a resolution declaring cost to be assessed for the improvement project. So after the bids were received, we were able to determine the construction costs and expenses incurred or to be incurred by the project. You can see the resolution includes the estimated construction cost of such improvements is $544,964. This is the bid amount for the project plus a contingency that was included. Then the expenses to be incurred in making such improvement is $111,730. This includes engineering, city admin, bonding costs, that sort of thing. The total cost of the improvement is $656,694. Below that, then, of that total, the city is paying $239,193, and the remaining portion of $417,501 is proposed to be assessed. For the city's assessment policy, it allows between 1 and 10 years for assessments under $10,000 to be paid. Those over $10,000 have 15 or more years. Some of our assessments, proposed assessments exceed that $10,000 mark. So that's something that as a city we'll have to consider if we want to go 15 years or more.
And Mr. Mayor, members, if you choose at the time of final assessment to provide for a longer term, that's the time at which you can make that decision.
Okay, thank you, Todd. So then in item 3 of that resolution, the city clerk and myself, we put together the assessment roll based on the policy for every parcel. That's located on page 16 of your packet. Those are the proposed assessments. Generally, like I mentioned, they range, anywhere from about, on average, about 7%, I believe, less than what we had estimated. There is a few, 1 or 2 properties that are a little bit more because of some unique things going on there. I'm trying to think. I think that's it for that particular resolution to be considered by the city council. If you do approve that resolution, what happens is that assessment roll is prepared, which, like I mentioned, is in your packet. And then we would consider a resolution calling for an assessment hearing. This is in a condensed format just to keep the project moving and being able to actually award the bid if we decide to continue moving forward and award the project within, I think, 61 days of the bid opening. So anyway, that's the first resolution. If you have any questions, I'd be happy to answer.
Carrie, go ahead.
I guess I have process questions. So there's a hearing in March if this is approved. And then, so we have an opportunity to hear from property owners. And then what decision making follows that?
So there are a number of decisions that follow that, but the primary of which is for you to hear from abutting property owners. This resolution really, in essence, provides that notice.
Okay.
What you're saying here is that your plan is to assess the project. Jeff has calculated the assessments against the individual property owners. They received notice of that estimated assessment, and then they're to be heard on March 8th. After that, if you choose to move forward, we would seek to have you approve a contract and enter based on the bids that you have going forward. The project then would move forward and take place. And then at the end of the project or at substantial completion or shortly thereafter, then the final assessment roll would come back to the city council for review and approval. Within that time frame, and as I mentioned, with assessments that are greater than $10,000, your policy states 15 years or more. The assessment, proposed assessment roll will be calculated at 15 years, but the council certainly could at that time make adjustments to that for those amounts that are in excess of $10,000. But that final assessment doesn't happen until gone through this process, approved bids, and construction has taken place.
Okay.
Does that help?
It does help. Yeah. And I think my follow-up question, and it's related to the assessments, is so we've received the bids and we've updated these numbers. So have the property owners yet seen these, or we're providing notice? That's our action tonight. We're providing notice. And then what does that notice look like to the property owner? Is it a letter? And then they see their individual property assessment and the breakdown for that?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. And about what's the timeline for that?
Oh, within a week or so.
Okay, so there's plenty of time before the hearing.
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you.
Pete, did you have anything else to add to Jeff's presentation?
No, Jeff and Todd have covered everything really well. And so our intent would be to mail a letter to the homeowners and then meet with those that have questions or concerns ahead of time and hopefully answer their questions.
All right, then we will go back. Is there any other questions? Steve?
I just have one. Jeff, so are we is the total assessment per property the column on the far right of your spreadsheet? Is that what I understand?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, all right. Now, can individual property owners contest individual sections of the total assessment, whether it be storm sewer or sanitary or water or, that type of thing? Or is it, you contest the entire total assessment package?
It would be the total assessment against their property.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Okay, anybody else?
Mr. Mayor, one other item that I
Yes.
have, although we do not have that list in the packet, as you're aware, many of the property owners have signed a waiver
Right.
based on the original engineer's estimate of the project. As Jeff indicated, the bids came in under that number. So in most instances, the number is less than the waiver that property owners have already signed.
And well, first of all, any other questions? As Todd mentioned earlier, we may want to extend, we don't have to do it tonight. We may want to extend the terms because some of these are $40,000 to $50,000. And even if you take 15 years, that's still 3,000, whatever a month or a year, excuse me. So we may want to take a look at that, to extending that to make it a little more palatable on their tax statement when they get them.
Mr. Mayor, members, just as a point of clarification relative to the state statute, you certainly can do that under your policy and under state statute, but you are not allowed to extend it past 30 years.
Right.
It's also important to note that you are likely to have some property owners that ask for a deferral based on state statute and meeting certain criteria. And I won't go through all that criteria tonight,
Right.
but there's the opportunity for some to defer.
Right. Okay, there are no other questions. The resolution declaring cost to be assessed for North 3rd Street Center and McLeod Street from West Julian appears on page 17. Is there a motion for approval?
Noel will move.
Emily will second.
Shannon 1, Emily 2. Any more questions now? Call the roll, please, Barb.
Councilmember Grams,
Aye.
Councilmember Carrie Johnson,
Aye.
Councilmember Noel,
Aye.
Councilmember Ed Johnson,
Aye.
Mayor Zeman.
Aye.
Councilmember DeVos,
Aye.
Councilmember Bruflat.
Aye.
Resolution is approved. Next up, we have a resolution calling for the hearing on the proposed assessments, those same properties.
Yeah, I can go through that.
Yeah,
one,
I
Mayor.
was going to say, Jeff, repeat.
Yes, thank you. The first paragraph of that resolution, today's meeting, you had ordered the preparation of that proposed assessment based on the cost breakdown that we have there. So that was prepared already and included in your packet, as I noted before. The next resolution is calling for a hearing on the assessment hearing on the proposed improvements. So we scheduled that for before the council meeting on March 8th, which is a Monday at 7 p.m. Here in the governor's room. That would provide an opportunity for property owners to approach the council and discuss their assessment if they choose to. Prior to that, Notices, as Todd has mentioned, notices will be sent to all the property owners with their assessment amount, with the interest rate and the term of their assessment. And it also provides instructions for them on how to, what opportunity will be available at the hearing. We've also included the virtual information in the notice. This is essentially what will be published in the newspaper. That law requires that we publish this once in the newspaper, along with sending it to the property owners. So meeting will be held, in person or virtually. And I think the only other thing that I have to note is, the hearing notice does provide property owners with instructions on how to request a deferral for an assessment, how to appeal an assessment if they choose to do that. But in the end, this resolution calls for that hearing and sets that hearing date as March 8th at 7 p.m. And that's all I
Okay.
had.
All right. Any questions?
Mr. Mayor.
Ed?
Are them letters we send out, are they registered or certified so we know that people are getting them? Or,
The law doesn't require they be certified, but that's a choice of the city council. If you want to send them out certified. we
I
sure
didn't know
can.
what the policy was for the city, what we do.
In all instances with this project, we will likely follow up with a direct communication as well. So as you may be aware, I think Pete's team has spoken at least once with every property owner personally in that area as well.
Okay.
Any other questions? If not, the resolution calling for a hearing on proposed assessment for North 3rd Street, Center, and McLeod. And maybe at some point we want to change the spelling of McLeod on this one. Streets from West Julian Street to 1,000 feet north. Appears on pages 18 and 19. Is there a motion for approval?
Ed will make a motion to approve.
I'll move, Mr. Mayor. The second, Mr. Mayor.
All right, we got Ed 1, Steve 2. Any more questions? Call the roll, please, Barb.
Councilmember Carrie Johnson,
Aye.
Councilmember Noel,
Aye.
Councilmember Ed Johnson,
Aye.
Mayor Zeman,
Aye.
Councilmember DeVos,
Aye.
Councilmember Bruflat,
Aye.
Councilmember Grams.
Aye.
Thank you.
Resolution is approved. That concludes our new business for our special meeting. We will now ask for a motion to adjourn this meeting.
Ed will make a motion to adjourn the meeting.
Noel will second.
Ed 1, Shannon 2, all in favor of adjournment, please signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed? We are adjourned.
Hey, Barb, thanks for catching the summary resolution. Mayor, members,